A celebrated yet distant figure in the sphere of entertainment, Julian shocked his fanbase on an otherwise ordinary afternoon. He came out, and in the same breath, announced his participation in a slow-living reality series for couples. The internet erupted. His followers were aghast, posting that if their idol was being blackmailed, he should blink twice in his next public appearance. They wondered aloud who could possibly have turned Hollywood's most famously stoic leading man. Even casual observers were stunned. This was a far cry from a typical celebrity relationship reveal. The outrage, however, was predicated on ignorance. It wasn't until the premiere of the show that the public understood. Within hours, the names Julian and Elias Vance dominated every trending topic. The same online communities that had been so critical collectively backpedaled. They marveled at how everyone involved had kept such a secret, and how Julian was not just in a relationship, but seemed to be the one pursuing it, even spoiling Elias's small circle of friends. They declared that Julian had found the perfect partner, a steady and nurturing presence. The consensus was that their dynamic was surprisingly stable. There were, of course, dissenting opinions. A vocal minority insisted that if a man as exquisitely aloof as Julian wasn't the dominant one in the relationship, then the world had truly lost all meaning. Julian had always been an enigma, a beautiful and remote peak in the Hollywood landscape. He entered the industry at 22 and, by 25, had become a household name for his chilling portrayal of a tormented antagonist in an award-winning thriller. This role secured him a massive and devoted following. The tabloids, smelling blood in the water, began a frantic search for any scandal in his past. Yet, all they unearthed was a privileged upbringing in a powerful East Coast family, a feud that had led him to strike out on his own in Los Angeles, and a clean record. Rival fanbases tried to spin this into a narrative of spoiled entitlement, suggesting that even the sons of venture capitalists knew Hollywood was an easy ride. That a fabricated sob story was all it took for fans to open their wallets. One comment speculated whether the fans' pocket change was even enough to cover a single tire on Julian's custom Rivian. Julian saw the post late one evening. Below it, a war was raging between his supporters and the trolls. He lit a sleek, black cigarette and typed a reply. He explained that he was born with a love for the spotlight and had never needed anyone else's money. He didn't know if their money could buy a Rivian tire, but he was certain their idols couldn't afford his. His truck was the first of its global launch, its tires a prototype. The troll, incensed, launched into a tirade of insults. Julian's fans, however, were ecstatic, celebrating his sharp wit and declaring that he wasn't an ice prince but a rose armed with thorns. He didn't reply further. Instead, he opened a private chat with his most vocal defenders in a fan Discord and sent a series of substantial Venmo payments, a silent thank you for their loyalty. The channel filled with confused emojis, quickly followed by a flood of disbelieving messages. He ignored the ensuing chaos, turning his attention to the scripts his agent had sent. Riding the wave of his breakout role, his agent, Lena, was keen on solidifying his brand. She had sent him a slate of projects, all featuring similar dark, complex characters from major studios. He sifted through them for hours before finding one that, while still inhabiting a shadowy world, offered a different kind of psychological depth than his previous role. When he told Lena his choice, she called him immediately. She questioned his decision, reminding him that he was at the peak of his career, with major directors and producers clamoring to work with him. She asked if he was sure he wanted to pass up those opportunities. Leaning on his penthouse balcony, Julian let a plume of smoke curl from his lips. The pale vapor blurred his features under the warm glow of the outdoor sconce. He thought he saw the flash of a camera from the street below. He told Lena that he didn't want the other roles. He was drawn to this particular character. Lena sighed, a sound of weary acceptance. She told him she'd inform the production and that he should use the next few days to delve into the character, as an audition might be scheduled soon. After agreeing, Julian extinguished the half-smoked cigarette in a crystal ashtray. His eyes drifted to the paparazzo lurking below, a dedicated but lonely figure feeding the mosquitoes. He mentioned to Lena that he was being photographed. Lena's voice sharpened with concern, asking when it started. "Just now," he replied, adding that he had even offered a slight smile. He predicted that by noon the next day, a story would break about him sharing a sweet, late-night phone call with a mysterious new girlfriend. Lena fell silent for a moment, a rare occurrence, before assuring him she would handle everything. In her years as an agent, she had dealt with far worse, from blackmail attempts to full-blown scandals. But with Julian's star ascending so rapidly, countless rivals were watching, meaning any rumor had to be extinguished with ruthless efficiency. She added that the role he'd chosen was psychologically demanding and would be a challenge to perform. If he struggled to grasp the character's mindset, she knew a psychologist he could talk to, a friend of hers. Julian didn't refuse, telling her to send the contact information. After ending the call, he waved languidly at the figure below before retreating into his apartment. He opened his phone to look at the contact card Lena had sent. The name was Elias Vance. The profile picture was simple and stark, a giant, stylized letter E on a white background. An interesting man, Julian thought, his thumb hovering over the Send Friend Request button. The dim screen reflected his pale irises, his dark hair falling across his brow, creating an androgynous beauty that was both striking and unapproachable. Julian's sudden fame had led to rampant online speculation about his next project. The paparazzi had even floated rumors of a secret meeting with a legendary director. So when his studio officially announced his involvement in a small, independent psychological thriller titled Distance, his fanbase flooded the studio's social media with furious comments. Lena, fearing the backlash would distract him, instructed him to focus on the script while she managed the public relations storm. The online criticism intensified, fueled by anonymous accounts likely funded by his rivals, who started rumors about his promiscuity. Lena, never one to back down, promptly issued a series of legal S. Julian himself posted a terse statement to his official Twitter. Never been in a serious relationship. Sexual orientation currently undetermined. Before his fans could fully process the statement, he dropped another series of surprise cash gifts into his fan channels. The gesture worked. The tide of fan opinion turned instantly. They latched onto his words, defending him fiercely. They pointed out that he had just said he'd never been in a real relationship, so the rumors were baseless. One fan joked that his accusers must have tried and failed to seduce him themselves. Another commented that, based on the speed and bluntness of his denial, he was probably as straight as an arrow. An anonymous user replied, asking just how straight. The fans were placated, and Lena's swift legal action quelled the rest of the manufactured outrage. Only a few paid trolls remained, their pathetic attempts to stir up trouble silenced by cease and desist letters. Julian's life returned to a semblance of calm. He gave himself a quiet period to immerse himself in the new script. Lena had been right. The role was incredibly difficult. He was to play Leo, a high school student tormented by bullies. Leo came from poverty, the product of a one-night stand between his mother, a dancer at a local dive bar, and a bartender. He grew up in a cramped, dark apartment in a rundown neighborhood, just a street away from the neon glow of the bar where his mother worked. As a child, she would sometimes bring him to work, leaving him with her fellow dancers. The stark contrast between the vibrant, flashing lights of the stage and the perpetual gloom of his home life fostered in Leo an intense yearning for the spotlight. He believed that if he could just stand in the center of a stage, bathed in the attention of a crowd, he could temporarily fill the cavernous emptiness inside him. But the shame of his origins and the weight of his poverty held him back, making him silent and withdrawn, a shadow in the school hallways, an easy target for the local thugs. If not for a new arrival, Leo might have endured it forever. But then Ethan, a bright, cheerful transfer student, joined his class, and Leo fell for him. The moment he recognized his own feelings, a strange thrill coursed through him, as if a lock on the floodgates of his heart had been released. But this was followed by even greater torment and regret. He buried the remaining locks deep inside himself, swallowing the keys in a twisted act of self-punishment that brought him a perverse sense of peace. It was then that Ethan began to approach him, chasing off his bullies, helping him with homework, walking with him to and from school, and slowly coaxing him out of his shell. No one could resist the advances of the person they admired, not even a boy as prematurely jaded as Leo. So when Ethan, his face flushed, asked Leo to meet him that night in the woods behind the school, saying he had something to confess, Leo's eyes shone with a brilliant light. It was the hope of a man long trapped in hell finally glimpsing a ladder to heaven. But the universe was cruel, and it cut the rungs from beneath him. Leo went to the woods that night, but Ethan never appeared. Instead, he was met by the same group of bullies, who subjected him to a vicious beating before stripping him and taking photos. They taunted him, revealing that the entire setup was a cruel game orchestrated by Ethan to break his heart. They said that physical torment was boring. True despair came from psychological warfare. Leo endured the beating and the humiliation in silence. Only when they were about to leave did he ask where Ethan was. The lead bully grinned, telling him that Ethan thought he was disgusting, didn't want to see him, and was planning to transfer schools. In the cold night wind, a soft whimper escalated into a raw, agonized wail. The next morning, when Leo was found, his body was cold to the touch. He was rushed to the hospital, but the explicit photos and vicious rumors had already spread like wildfire through the school. Students whispered that they never suspected quiet Leo was so wild. Others claimed to have seen him at the bar, suggesting that the son of a dancer and a bartender was following in their footsteps, selling himself. No one cared to find the truth behind the rumors. They just savored the salacious gossip. Amidst the scandal, Leo dropped out of school for a year and a half. After reading the first half of the script, Julian pulled a cigarette from its pack, lighting it with a soft click. The nicotine haze filled the air. He exhaled a thin stream of smoke, as if trying to expel the heavy weight that had settled in his chest. Acting required a powerful capacity for empathy, a way to find resonance between the character's life and one's own. He had grown up in luxury, never knowing the sting of poverty or the terror of bullying. But he and Leo shared one crucial trait, a deep-seated desire to be in the spotlight. This was the very reason for the rift with his family. His parents' marriage was a corporate merger, and they each moved in their own established social circles. His older brother, Caleb, was the meticulously groomed heir to their empire. Julian was an accident, a consequence of a drunken night. Raised by nannies, with his parents perpetually absent and his brother buried under a mountain of academic and extracurricular obligations, Julian was often left to his own devices. Caleb, even when exhausted, would force himself to stay up and play with him. But one night, seeing the deep, blue-black circles under his brother's eyes, Julian put down his toys. He announced with a smile that he was sleepy and it was time for bed, urging his brother to get some rest too. Caleb, too tired to notice the change in his younger brother's demeanor, simply nodded, wished him good night, and dragged his weary body upstairs. At 11 o'clock at night, the grand living room was brilliantly lit but eerily silent, the only sound coming from the television a nanny had left on. It was an awards show. Dazzling celebrities in designer clothes stood on a stage, the center of everyone's attention, their smiles radiant. A thought took root in Julian's young mind. If only someone would look at me like that. If only I could stand in the spotlight. Once planted, the seed didn't need watering. Time and neglect were enough to make it sprout. After graduating from college, he announced his intention to pursue acting. His parents, rarely in agreement, were united in their opposition. They summoned him home to demand an explanation. He stood on the grand staircase, wearing a simple black t-shirt, his messy fringe brushing against his eyebrows. His eyes, a mirror of his mother's, were a placid, lifeless sea. A careless smile played on his lips. He told them he wanted to be seen, to be watched constantly, never to be abandoned. His mother, aghast, called him a lunatic, questioning how their privileged life could have produced someone so psychologically unbalanced. She then turned on Caleb, demanding to know how Julian had become this way. Caleb simply shrugged, remarking that it was hardly his responsibility. He asked them if their philosophy was to have children for their own momentary pleasure and then outsource the raising. His parents' faces turned a blotchy purple, their upper-class composure cracking. They redirected their fury at Caleb, who, hardened by years in the corporate world, was immune to their tirades. He sat back, legs crossed, listening to their rant while casually taking a call. He spoke into his phone, his voice softening, telling his partner he was at home and asking about their vacation plans. Julian went upstairs to pack. When he came back down, his parents had ceased their attack on his brother. His mother was silent, his father's gaze fixed on the suitcase in his hand. His father's voice was low and menacing as he said that while they might not be able to control Caleb, they could still control him. If he insisted on this path, he was not to come back, and he would be cut off from the family fortune. Julian replied that it was a real shame. He dragged his suitcase to the foyer, and as he changed his shoes, his eyes met Caleb's across the room. Unlike their parents' furious expressions, Caleb's was calm, almost amused. He gave Julian a subtle wink. Julian offered a polite farewell to his aunt and uncle, calling them by the formal terms one would use for non-relatives. The front door, heavy and soundproofed like everything else in the opulent house, slammed shut behind him. The sudden silence was a relief. To avoid an immediate confrontation, he slipped the keys to Caleb's Porsche, which he'd swiped earlier, from his pocket and headed for the underground garage. After circling the block 3 times, he saw Caleb emerge from the house. His brother wore a crisp white shirt and tailored trousers, his hair slicked back, a single hand loosening his tie while the other slung a suit jacket over his shoulder. Without a glance at the car, he pulled open the passenger door and slid in. He gave a single destination, Matsuhisa. It was an exclusive Beverly Hills sushi restaurant owned by Caleb's boyfriend's family. As the car sped along the freeway, Caleb asked casually if Julian had found an agency yet. Julian confirmed that their family lawyer, Mr. Chin, had already reviewed a contract. Caleb seemed satisfied, noting that with Chin's approval, it was a solid deal. He then added, with dry humor, that since Julian wasn't short on cash, he could afford any potential breach of contract penalties. Caleb was typing on his phone, not even looking up as he delivered his next line. "So, dinner's on you tonight," Julian agreed without hesitation. His swift acceptance made Caleb look up, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Julian smiled serenely, remarking that it had been a while since he'd seen Chin, and that Chin probably didn't know about Caleb's secret habit of smoking in the bathroom to de-stress. Caleb's expression froze. He had a major aversion to smoking after a health scare and had forced Caleb to quit. Caleb, whose addiction was mild and mostly stress-related, had been caught just once by his unlucky brother. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Caleb's face. He congratulated Julian, informing him that he had just made his first ever hater. Julian simply raised an eyebrow, replying that Caleb should feel lucky. When asked why, Julian stated calmly that Caleb was now the first fan of a future Oscar winner. Sometimes Caleb thought his brother was perfectly suited for Hollywood. His looks were one thing, but his audacity was on another level. He sighed, then said that dinner was still on Julian. After all, he asked, what kind of big-shot celebrity doesn't treat his fans when he runs into them? Before filming for Distance began, Lena booked Julian for several high-fashion campaigns and events, converting his buzz into tangible brand value while increasing his visibility. His life became a whirlwind of scripts, airports, and photo shoots in Milan, London, and Paris. Stalker fans somehow obtained his flight itineraries and, upon landing, would rush the first-class cabin to take photos. On one such flight, Lena wasn't with him. A young assistant she'd assigned tried to shield him, her eyes red with frustration, but she held her ground. her voice trembling as she asked everyone to return to their seats for their own safety. They ignored her, shouting over her, calling her an ugly nobody and telling her to get out of the way. They clamored for Julian's attention, asking him if he liked men or women, their voices a shrill chorus. Julian gently pulled the assistant's arm. She turned, her eyes wet with tears. He gave her a subtle shake of his head and guided her back to her seat, his grip firm. With the human barrier gone, the fans' eyes lit up, their phones practically touching his face. He looked up and offered a faint, chilling smile. A girl in the front let out a sharp squeal of excitement, which was abruptly cut off by a loud crack. It was followed by a torrent of abuse. Someone screamed at Julian, asking if he was out of his mind for smashing her phone. The chaotic aisle suddenly fell silent. Julian calmly pulled out a packet of wet wipes and cleaned his hands. He informed her that his studio would contact her after they landed to arrange for compensation. But for now, he continued, they were all disrupting public order. If they continued, there would be police officers waiting to escort them from the plane. His voice was quiet, but it carried an undeniable weight. He asked if he needed to repeat himself, telling them to return to their seats and clear the aisle. His dark eyes fixed on the girl whose phone he had broken. She glared back, but meeting his gaze, she felt a sudden jolt of fear. His eyes were like a thin sheet of ice, reflecting her own furious face. His lips curved into a smile devoid of any warmth. He crossed his long legs, the hand that had just thrown her phone resting casually on his knee. The cuff of his white shirt was rolled up, revealing a strong, elegant wrist, the faint blue of his veins visible beneath the skin. She snarled that this wasn't over, snatched her shattered phone from the floor, and stormed off. The remaining fans exchanged uncertain glances, then wilted under Julian's scornful gaze and dispersed. The flight crew resumed their duties. The assistant turned to him, tears streaming down her face, apologizing profusely. It was her first time in such a situation, and she felt she had only made things worse. She knew what would happen as soon as they landed. The internet would be flooded with angry posts from these fans. He told her it wasn't her fault, handing her a tissue. He said it was her first time, and the fact that she had stood in front of him meant he was the one who should be thanking her. She tearfully asked what would happen with the stalker. He replied simply, "Let her stew." As the plane taxied to the gate, a flight attendant came to escort them. As Julian stood to leave, a smooth, resonant male voice came from behind him. The man said hello, expressed his admiration for Julian, and asked for an autograph. The assistant tensed, assuming it was another stalker. Julian instinctively turned toward the voice. In the seat behind and to the side sat a man with an exceptionally refined bone structure. His posture alone suggested a reserved, gentle, and introspective nature. He wore a crisp white shirt with mother-of-pearl buttons. His neck was long, his shoulders broad and straight. A pair of dark sunglasses concealed the upper half of his face, leaving only a pair of well-shaped, naturally pink lips visible. He looked more like a celebrity than Julian did. The assistant whispered his name. Julian stepped aside to let others pass and asked where the man wanted him to sign. The man handed him a boarding pass and a pen. Julian signed his name with a flourish, then held out his hand. The man made a questioning sound, raising an eyebrow. Julian asked if he could use the man's phone for a picture. The man's eyebrows arched in amusement, and he replied that it would be his honor. He unlocked his phone and handed it over. Julian held up the phone, a genuine smile touching his lips. He flashed a peace sign. Behind him, the man mirrored the gesture. The tarmac outside the window became the backdrop for an impromptu photo. With a soft click, the picture was saved. Julian returned the phone, his smile fading into a polite, neutral expression. He thanked the man for being a good sport. The man, momentarily taken aback, broke into a warm, genuine laugh. He pocketed his phone and waved, saying it was his pleasure and wishing Julian a bright future. Outside the VIP exit, a massive crowd of fans waited with signs. Airport security, already briefed, formed a protective cordon around him, steering him through the throng while keeping a path clear for other travelers. The sheer number of people was overwhelming, and Julian, his assistant, and the security guards were nearly crushed. They finally made it to the curb where Lena's black SUV was waiting. As he ducked into the car, the fans shouted well wishes, telling him to take care of himself. He thanked them all, and in a rare moment of playfulness, formed a small heart with his fingers by his cheek. The crowd erupted. One fan shrieked about how sweet he was, a far cry from his dark on-screen personas. Another swooned, saying that seeing a man with his intense features make such a cute gesture was too much to handle. Inside the car, the driver pulled away smoothly. The assistant began sorting the letters and gifts they had collected. Her phone buzzed. It was Lena. She demanded a full account of what had happened on the plane. Someone had posted a selectively edited video of the incident online, with a vague, clickbait title about Julian smashing a fan's phone. The clip had gone viral, and rival media outlets were having a field day. Within 30 minutes, Julian's name was attached to 4 or 5 negative trending topics. The assistant recounted the events, her voice breaking at the end as she apologized again, blaming herself for not thinking of a better solution. On the other end of the line, Lena rubbed her temples, signaling her team to begin damage control. She told the assistant that stalkers weren't real fans and that they were in the wrong, but that Julian had also acted impulsively. She then asked to speak to him. Julian took the phone with one hand while opening a fan letter with the other. His voice was calm. Lena told him to lay low, cancel his upcoming talk show appearance, and stay off social media. She said the company would handle his accounts for a few days. Then she sighed, and with a touch of gallows humor, remarked that with the number of times he'd been trending lately, she'd suspect he was paying for the publicity if the context weren't so negative. He replied drily that his brother had all the money and certainly wouldn't be spending it on him. Thinking of Caleb's recent Instagram story, a video of him and his boyfriend on a yacht in the Maldives, Julian let out a faint sigh of his own. His little brother was in hot water while his big brother was living a life of leisure. He picked up his own phone, opened his chat with Caleb's boyfriend, and sent 3 words: "Under the sink." A moment later, his phone began vibrating uncontrollably with a dozen notifications from the vacationing Caleb. The messages were a stream of curses, demanding to know how Julian knew about the $200 in emergency cigarette money he'd stashed there. Julian calmly watched the cityscape fly by, a sense of serene satisfaction washing over him from the petty act of revenge. His whole demeanor softened. The assistant watched him, curious as to what Lena could have said to make the ice prince melt into a spring breeze. Lena advised him to use the downtime to study the rest of the script, as filming was about to begin. She cleared his schedule of everything but his most essential commitments, giving him a few days of peace. He took her advice seriously, holing up in his apartment, poring over the script, and practicing lines to an empty room. When he encountered a particularly challenging emotional beat, he would message the psychologist whose profile picture was a single, stark E. The replies always came within a couple of hours, his analysis clear and insightful. In the script, Leo returns to school a year and a half later and begins to enact his revenge on the bullies. With each act of retribution, he feels a dark satisfaction, but also sinks deeper into an abyss. After he orchestrates the first death, he is one step closer to hell. When he finally confronts the last of them, the ringleader, Marco, cornered in an abandoned warehouse, the boy breaks down and tells him the truth of that night. Ethan had not betrayed him. The bullies, resentful of Ethan's constant defense of Leo, had followed him into the woods that night. They had only intended to beat him up, but Ethan fought back. In the scuffle, one of them got punched, and in a surge of teenage rage, pulled out a knife he carried for show and stabbed him. The sound of the blade entering flesh stunned them all. Someone stammered about calling 911, but Marco slapped the phone from his hand, hissing that if the story got out, they'd all go to prison. He looked at Ethan, bleeding out on the ground, and a cold, cruel smile formed on his lips. They had already crossed a line, so what was one more? This part of the woods was deserted. If they dug a deep enough hole, no one would ever know. He ordered the others to start digging. He nudged Ethan with his foot. Ethan's vision was blurring from blood loss. He could only hear the frantic drumming of his own heart. "Run, Leo," he tried to mouth, "don't come here." But no sound escaped his lips. From an outsider's perspective, he was just a boy lying motionless on the ground, the earth beneath him soaked in a growing pool of blood. The script detailed how Marco, watching from a distance, saw Leo arrive with a flashlight. He hardly recognized him. Dressed in a clean white shirt and faded jeans, his overgrown hair brushed back, Leo's bright eyes were visible for the first time. Marco wondered what he was doing there. He followed him, watching as Leo stood beneath a large tree, his gaze fixed on the path below, a shy, expectant smile on his face. Marco sneered, wondering who could possibly be interested in a loser like Leo. Then he heard Leo whisper to himself, asking why Ethan was so late. Ethan. Marco's jaw tightened. He realized the two were involved. Thinking of Ethan's body lying just a few hundred feet away, a vicious idea took hold. He sent a text to the others. Soon, the rustling of footsteps approached from the woods. Leo, startled, turned to see the group of bullies emerge from the shadows. Conditioned by fear, his legs froze. Marco stepped out, hands in his pockets, and whistled. He sneered, remarking that Ethan wasn't there to protect him tonight. The rest Leo had already lived through. After Marco, crying, finished his confession in the warehouse, he looked fearfully at the knife in Leo's hand. The blade gleamed. It was held in a wrist so thin it looked like it could snap. It was hard to believe such a frail person could have the strength to strangle the life out of someone, as he had with the first boy. Leo nodded calmly, his face devoid of emotion. "So that's what happened," he said. Marco was stunned by his coldness, having expected an outburst of rage. But when he looked into Leo's eyes, he saw only a dead, black emptiness. He remembered the raw, agonizing cry Leo had let out when he'd first told him Ethan found him disgusting. They had beaten Leo countless times, but they had never heard a sound so full of despair. Marco tried to reason with him, pleading that Leo had good grades and a future ahead of him, that he shouldn't throw it all away for scum like him. He promised to keep silent, even offered to turn himself in and take the blame for all the murders. Tears of terror streamed down his face as he saw Leo advance. He begged for his life, offering money, anything. The knife plunged into his chest. A future? Leo's voice was eerily calm, emotionless except for the white-knuckled grip on the knife. "I was supposed to have a bright future. I was so close to crawling out of the mud. You tormented me for no reason, and I never fought back. I was almost free of you. Why? Why?" He pulled the blade out and stabbed again and again. When the heart was destroyed, he moved to other parts of the body. Marco's body convulsed, his eyes wide with the horror of his own death, reflecting Leo's hate-filled, demonic gaze. The wail of sirens cut through the night. Outside the warehouse, police shouted "S," mixed with the frantic cries of Marco's parents. Tears streamed down Leo's face, unnoticed. He stared coldly at the body, then kicked the chair over. The corpse and chair crashed to the concrete floor. He pushed open the warehouse doors and walked out into the flashing lights. A dozen black gun barrels were pointed at him. He looked down and held out his hands in a gesture of surrender. An officer holstered his weapon and cautiously approached. Leo remained perfectly still as the cold metal of the handcuffs closed around his wrists. Marco's parents saw their son's body through the open door. The mother let out a piercing scream and fainted. The father, veins bulging on his forehead, lunged at Leo, held back only by the police. He screamed, demanding to know why Leo had been so cruel to his son. Leo looked at the grief-stricken man, his voice hoarse. "And you," he asked, "why didn't you teach your son to be a better person?" In the interrogation room, Leo had only one request: for the police to dig in the woods behind the school for Ethan's body. He promised a full confession if they did. A young detective, disturbed by the prospect of another victim, got approval from her superiors. They dug where Leo instructed and unearthed a skeleton. It was Ethan, the boy everyone thought had transferred. An investigation was immediately launched. When Leo was informed that the body had been found, he fell into a deep silence. In the stark, white light of the interrogation room, the detective asked how he knew where the body was. He told her Marco had confessed. The detective noticed his rigid posture and sensed something was wrong. "Leo," she said sharply, "look at me." His shoulders began to tremble. She stood and lifted his chin. His face was ghostly white, his lip bitten raw, and he was hyperventilating, his whole body shaking violently. Tears and blood mingled as they dripped onto his shirt. The detective's face paled. She yelled for help, for someone to call an ambulance. At the hospital, the doctor informed the two officers guarding his room that the patient was stable, sedated, and sleeping. He told them Leo had a severe case of PTSD and had been treated at their hospital before for multiple suicide attempts. He had been discharged 3 months prior by his mother. The two detectives exchanged a look of pity. A colleague had called with the full story. Marco and his gang had relentlessly bullied Leo. Ethan had been his only protector. Then one day, Ethan vanished. His grandmother had come to the school looking for him, but was turned away. She was about to report him missing when Marco's gang terrorized her by smashing her windows in the middle of the night, causing a fatal heart attack. With Marco's father's influence, the school officially listed Ethan as a transfer student. With his parents dead and his only guardian gone, no one was left to look for him. The school was soon consumed by the scandal of Leo's leaked photos. The female detective swore under her breath, her eyes red. The story, leaked to the press, caused a national outcry. The headline, "High School Student Kills 6, was shocking enough, but as the details of the bullying, the murder, and the cover-up emerged, public opinion shifted dramatically. The parents of the bullies were doxxed. Their social media flooded with vitriolic comments. Online, people expressed both horror and a grim understanding. The consensus was that while Leo's actions were horrific, the years of torment had pushed him to a breaking point. A sigh of collective sadness rippled through the forums, with many lamenting the waste of 2 bright young lives. When the detective was allowed to visit Leo again, he seemed even thinner, the scars on his wrists stark against his pale skin. He simply lay there, stroking them, lost in memories. He looked at her with the same dead eyes and confessed to everything. The story ended with Leo sentenced to death. A guard told the detective that he rarely slept, and when he did, he would wake up screaming, then retreat to a corner of his cell, silent and catatonic. The detective sought out Leo's father, who was now a successful manager at a high-end club. He was handsome, well-dressed, and utterly indifferent. He said he had only provided money. The mother had raised him. And she, he added, had recently run off with a wealthy man. Leo was 18, legally an adult. His life or death was no longer their concern. They had supported him for 18 years. That was enough. The detective was sickened by his callousness. Before she could argue, her phone rang. It was the prison. Leo had killed himself, biting through the veins in his wrist. He was found with a serene smile on his face, as if in the middle of a beautiful dream. He left nothing behind, not even a note. It was the detective who claimed his ashes. Holding the small, square box, she wept. Leo's life, she thought, had been so bitter. Born in the mud, he had reached for a branch to pull himself out, only for it to snap, plunging him deeper into the mire. And all the while, the person he loved lay buried just a few hundred yards from where his heart had been broken. Elias's text analysis was precise. He wrote that Leo's actions in the woods were a result of severe PTSD and cognitive distortion, making him susceptible to Marco's misinformation. The bullying was the clear catalyst. He explained that Leo's deep-seated insecurity, stemming from a lack of care and a lifetime of being ignored, made him believe on some level that he and Ethan were from different worlds. The revenge was a culmination of long-suppressed rage and frustration, with his mother's final abandonment being the last straw. Elias concluded that by the end, after the truth was confirmed by the police, Leo's psyche went through a period of cold detachment, followed by a frantic attempt at cognitive repair and ultimately self-punishment and atonement. He called Distance a profoundly depressing story, a deep dive into psychological trauma that leaves the audience with an ache in their chest. He suggested that after filming, Julian should take some time off to decompress. Lena would understand. Actors, with their heightened empathy, are more susceptible to the emotional toll of such roles. This, Julian realized, was exactly why Lena had connected them. Elias could help him get into character, and if he had trouble getting out, the therapist was already on hand. There was no one more shrewd than Lena. Julian opened their chat and sent a winking cat emoji. Then he typed, "Mr. Vance, are you free tomorrow?" The reply came quickly. "What did you have in mind?" Julian kept it simple. "Dinner is on me." Most people would have padded the invitation with polite preamble, but Julian knew from their brief correspondence that Elias preferred directness. Sure enough, Elias replied 2 minutes later, suggesting a Thai place near his office at 10 the next morning. The next day, Julian arrived promptly at the restaurant on the 38th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking panoramic view of the Los Angeles skyline. He gave Elias's name and was led to a secluded table, sectioned off by lush banana plants. The hostess pulled back a leaf to reveal a man already seated, gazing out at the city. He wore a fitted black shirt, the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing strong, pale forearms. His posture was impeccable. As he turned and rose to greet Julian, the fabric of his tailored trousers pulled taut, hinting at a lean, powerful physique. His facial structure was flawless, a pair of intelligent eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled. A single, small mole, like a drop of ink on snow, sat high on his left cheekbone. If he had been wearing a pair of sunglasses, Julian would have recognized him instantly. "It's you," Julian said, a statement, not a question. "The man from the plane who wanted my autograph." After they ordered tom yum soup, mango wasabi shrimp, and yellow curry chicken, Elias formally introduced himself as Lena's university classmate and the owner of a private counseling practice. He mentioned that his parents were retired and living abroad, and were very open-minded. Julian raised an eyebrow, remarking that it sounded suspiciously like a setup for a blind date. Elias laughed apologetically, explaining that at his age, it had become a habit to be thorough. When Julian asked, he revealed he was 33. Julian noted he looked much younger. Elias poured him a cup of hot water, his eyes still curved in a smile. Julian took a sip, the warmth spreading through him in the cool, air-conditioned room. It was a habit he had mentioned in an interview years ago, drinking hot water in cold rooms. He commented that Elias must have known. Elias confirmed he was a fan, adding that they cared about his health. He then picked up a can of ice-cold Coke for himself. When Julian's gaze followed the can, Elias asked what was wrong. Julian pointed out the irony of a doctor advising a patient to avoid sugary drinks. Elias explained with a laugh that he was a psychologist, not a physician. He added that, psychologically speaking, the occasional soft drink releases dopamine and brings a sense of pleasure. Julian glanced at his own cup of hot water. Elias gently reminded him that he had a sensitive stomach and should avoid anything too harsh. Julian conceded that Elias was indeed a true fan. To avoid tempting him, Elias pushed his Coke aside and poured himself a cup of hot water as well. As he took a sip, the steam reddened his lips. Just then, the waiter arrived with their food, breaking the quiet intimacy of the moment. Julian shifted in his seat, his foot accidentally brushing against Elias's leg under the table. He apologized, though he felt little remorse. He felt a subtle movement as Elias crossed his legs, the leather of his shoe grazing Julian's ankle. Elias remained outwardly calm, smiling graciously and recommending the mango wasabi shrimp. It was delicious, the shrimp firm and cool, with a burst of sweet mango and a sharp kick of wasabi. He confirmed to Elias that it was excellent. Elias encouraged him to eat more, his voice warm and gentle as he said Julian was too thin and needed to take care of himself. It sounded like the concern of a devoted fan, yet carried a different weight. They finished their meal at a leisurely pace. Elias insisted on paying, holding up a hand to block Julian from trying to send him money. He said that treating someone he admired to a meal was a dream for many, and asked Julian to let him have this one. He proposed that Julian could get the next one. The words were ambiguous, but Elias's expression was so sincere that Julian, for a rare moment, wondered if he was overthinking things. Downstairs, as they waited for Lena to pick him up, Elias received an urgent call from a colleague. He gave Julian an apologetic look. Julian waved it off, telling him work was more important. Elias smiled, nodded, and disappeared into the stream of pedestrians. A sharp honk pulled Julian from his thoughts. Lena was in the driver's seat of her SUV, the window down, looking at him curiously. She asked what he was daydreaming about. As he moved to open the back door, something glinted on the pavement. He bent down and picked it up. It was a mother-of-pearl cufflink. Elias's cufflink. In the car, Lena discussed his schedule for joining the film set. Julian toyed with the small, iridescent button in his fingers before handing it to her. He explained that it was Mr. Vance's, and that he had found it after it fell off. Lena took it without a second thought, saying she would return it to him. Julian leaned back against the seat, watching the city blur past. His mind was suddenly startlingly clear. He had a problem. He was attracted to a man. But then he thought of Elias's gentle smile, his elegant features, the strength in his forearms, and his narrow waist. He decided that if he was going to be attracted to a man, Elias Vance was not an unreasonable choice. After all, he'd never really had a firm preference one way or the other. Once filming for Distance began, Julian's life became a relentless cycle of early calls and late nights. To better embody the gaunt, haunted Leo, he let his hair grow long and strictly controlled his diet, appearing even more slender on camera. A single leaked photo from the set sent him to the top of the trending charts. Fans praised his dedication, calling him their beautiful, gloomy boy, while detractors mocked his androgynous look. An unsubstantiated rumor, likely planted by a rival studio, began to circulate that he had a wealthy benefactor who was so infatuated that they were paying people $200,000 for a single signed photo of him. This bizarre story led to crowds of people mobbing him on his way to set each day, all clamoring for an autograph. The situation became so unmanageable that Lena insisted he travel heavily disguised. The fervor, however, only grew, and the hashtag #JulianNextBestActor began to trend, bringing with it a fresh wave of backlash. Lena was up until all hours managing the PR crisis, lamenting to anyone who would listen that she would sue whoever started the rumor into oblivion. Julian, meanwhile, continued to quietly reward his loyal fans and hired a private investigator to find the source of the story, with instructions to deliver a firm, anonymous message once they were found. On set, the director called for him. The makeup artist did a final touch-up and pushed him toward the classroom set. All the other actors were in place. A young man in a white t-shirt and jeans stood at the front of the room. He had strong features and a dimple that appeared when he smiled. This was Chris, the actor playing Ethan. He was a relative newcomer who had reportedly been blacklisted for 3 years after offending a powerful producer early in his career. He had a natural, raw talent that the director had been eager to cast. This was their first scene together, though they had met during read-throughs. The real Chris was a stark contrast to his on-screen persona. The director called for action. The scene began with Ethan's introduction to the class. Leo, nursing a fresh bruise on his forehead from a recent beating, was slumped over his desk, his eyes closed. The teacher introduced the new student. Ethan wrote his name on the blackboard, his voice clear and bright. He was instantly likable. The sound of applause startled the boy huddled in the corner. Leo didn't look up, just hugged himself tighter. The teacher's voice was a distant murmur until a chair scraped beside him. He looked up in alarm, his brown eyes wide and vulnerable. Ethan, seeing the teacher begin the lesson, put a finger to his lips and whispered a hello, introducing himself as his new deskmate. Leo, catching a disapproving glance from the teacher, shrank back into himself, burying his head in his arms. Ethan, puzzled, took his seat. He noticed how long his new deskmate's hair was, covering his neck. He wondered if he was some kind of brooding artist. A moment later, a small, folded piece of paper was pushed across his desk. He looked over, but the boy was still hidden. He unfolded it. On the paper were two neatly written words. Leo. It was the name he hadn't had a chance to say. A wide smile spread across Ethan's face. He quickly sketched a small rabbit waving hello on the paper and pushed it back. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the dark blue curtains, shrouding their corner in a soft, private shadow. Leo clutched the note, and hidden in the cradle of his arms, a small smile touched his lips. The director yelled, "Cut!" The first scene was a success. Julian remained composed as the director praised their chemistry, saying they looked like a real high school couple. Chris, however, blushed deeply. In real life, he was incredibly shy, the opposite of the sunny character he played. Julian noticed the sheen of sweat on his neck, likely from nerves. He found a half-used packet of tissues in his pocket and offered it to him. Chris looked up, his eyes shining with surprise and gratitude. A happy, puppy-like smile spreading across his face. He thanked him, calling him Mr. Julian. When Julian asked his age, Chris said he was 27. He then admitted, with a shy scratch of his head, that he was a huge fan of Julian's work. He asked if Julian would sign something for him. Julian agreed, then surprised him by asking for his autograph in return. When Chris looked confused, Julian explained with a smile that he could post it on Twitter when Chris became famous. Chris, after a moment of stunned silence, broke into a shy, dimpled grin. Filming progressed smoothly. The on-set chemistry between Julian and Chris was palpable, and the marketing team cleverly leaked behind-the-scenes clips, sending the online fandom into a frenzy. Fans dissected every glance, every shared smile. They swooned over the contrast between Chris's on-screen and off-screen personas. Speculation about Julian's previously undetermined sexual orientation ran rampant, with many convinced they were watching a real-life romance blossom. One evening, after a long day of shooting, Julian was heading back to his hotel. It was late, and Chris, who hadn't had any scenes that day, should have already been gone. But Julian found him in the elevator, half-supported in the arms of a tall, imposing man in a suit. The man's cold eyes flickered over Julian before settling back on Chris's head. He tightened his grip, murmuring for Chris to behave. Chris, his face flushed, mumbled something about the man being a jerk and not wanting to see him, then dry-heaved. The man calmly rubbed his back, his expression a mixture of exasperation and affection. He told Chris that it wasn't that he didn't want to see him, but that Chris had run off to take the role without a word, leaving him to deal with the fallout. He said he missed him. The elevator stopped at the 18th floor. Julian stepped out, relieved to escape the awkward intimacy of the scene. He found his room, but just as he was about to swipe his keycard, a voice called his name from behind. It was the man from the elevator, now holding a barely conscious Chris outside the room opposite his. He introduced himself, saying he was a friend of Julian's brother, Caleb. He then asked if he could get an autograph. Seeing Julian's confusion, he explained that at a recent dinner party, Caleb had boasted about his celebrity brother and told all his friends they had to support him. He had then made a joke about a signed photo being worth $200,000. The man explained that while none of them needed the money, free money was free money. Julian was silent for a long moment before agreeing to give a signed photo to Chris the next day. The man, who introduced himself as Victor, nodded his thanks and thanked Julian for looking after Chris on set, acknowledging his partner's shy nature. Julian gave a curt nod and disappeared into his room. As the door clicked shut, he pulled out his phone and sent a message to Caleb. "Get online." It was 2:30 in the morning, but Caleb, a notorious night owl, replied instantly with a question mark. Julian demanded to know who he had been promising autographs to. Caleb's reply was a mix of shock and pride, asking how Julian had found out. He boasted that he was being a good brother, joking that not even an A-list star's autograph went for that much. Julian's reply was a single, chilling promise. If Caleb found himself being anonymously beaten in a dark alley sometime soon, he shouldn't be surprised. It was, Julian added, his own doing. Caleb's only reply was a string of angry emojis. Julian put his phone on the charger and took a long, hot shower. The water washed away the day's fatigue. He emerged wrapped in a plush robe, his wet hair dripping onto his shoulders. After drying his hair, he collapsed onto the bed. It was after 3 in the morning and he had a 6 a.m. call time. But before sleeping, he scrolled through his social media feed out of habit. A college friend had posted a moody photo of a city skyline with the caption broken. Caleb's boyfriend had posted a picture of a perfectly cooked steak on a fork, held by a large, ring-wearing hand, clearly being offered to the person taking the photo. Then, a new post appeared at the top of his feed, uploaded just a minute ago. It was from Elias Vance. Julian clicked on the photo. It was a close-up of a hand, wrapped in gauze, resting on what looked like a marble countertop. The caption read, "Late-night cravings are a bad idea." Since Julian had started filming, their frequent chats had ceased, their conversation thread buried under a constant stream of messages. But seeing this post was like a bell being struck, its chime cutting through the fog of his exhaustion, pulling him back to the restaurant, to the memory of a feeling he had almost forgotten. Perhaps because of the emotional void left by his parents, he had always craved the attention of others, the feeling of all eyes on him. In college, he had tried to fill that void with relationships. He dated a girl from his drama club for 3 days. She broke up with him, saying that dating someone so attractive was too much pressure. She was tired of having to wear a full face of makeup every day. After her, a boy from his department pursued him. Julian wasn't particularly interested in men or women, but the boy was sweet and looked at him with stars in his eyes. Julian knew he was only after money. He was from a poor family, an orphan being raised by his grandmother. When the boy's roommates exposed his motives, he stood there, terrified, clutching the brand new Vacheron Constantine watch Julian had given him. The same watch that was destined for an online resale site to pay for his grandmother's medical bills. Julian had let him keep it. He had told him, a cigarette dangling from his lips, that he'd need something impressive for his future corporate internships. The boy's eyes had filled with tears. Julian had cut him off before he could apologize, saying he had nothing to be sorry for. In fact, he said he should be thanking him. The boy had helped him understand something important, that the intimate gaze of a lover did nothing to satisfy his craving for the spotlight. It didn't help at all. He had then changed the subject, informing the boy that he had arranged for a top neurologist from the city to fly in and consult on his grandmother's case, and that all her future medical expenses would be covered by him, a thank you for his time. The boy had simply stood there, stunned, before collapsing to the curb, sobbing. He had tried to say something as Julian walked away, but his voice was muffled by the jacket Julian had left draped over his head. After graduation, Julian had Caleb offer him a job at his firm. The memory faded. Julian realized his phone screen had gone dark. He pressed the power button, the image of Elias's bandaged hand reappearing. He navigated to Elias's profile, something he had never done for anyone before. Elias was a study in contrasts. His online persona was witty, self-deprecating, and full of a dry humor that seemed at odds with the calm, gentle man he had met. His posts were a mix of stunning cityscapes from his office window and funny, Relatable complaints about work, like wondering if he would ever get to sleep before midnight. Julian tried to imagine Elias's serene face saying those words and found he couldn't. Something was stirring in the back of his mind, a thought struggling to surface. At 4 in the morning, he forced himself to sleep. In the final moments before unconsciousness, he thought he heard a faint sound, like a seed finally breaking through the soil. The next morning, Chris, whose scenes were now finished, had his last day on set. The director gave everyone the afternoon off and organized a wrap party at a nearby restaurant, which later moved to a karaoke bar. The celebration went on until 11, ending only when Victor arrived to pick Chris up. In the parking garage, Lena was waiting for Julian. She hadn't forgotten about his mysterious trip to L. Her question was blunt. "You're interested in Elias Vance, aren't you?" Julian, leaning back with his eyes closed, gave a non-committal answer. "Maybe." Lena turned to face him, exasperated. "What do you mean, maybe? I thought you weren't into men." He opened his eyes, retorting that he wasn't into women either. A sharp look from her silenced him. She massaged her forehead, asking him how well he really knew Elias. She admitted that she hadn't known him well in college, only that his family was old money, wealthy beyond comprehension. His father had married into his mother's family, and Elias had taken her surname. He hadn't gone into psychology for the money or the prestige, but out of a genuine desire to help people. Seeing Julian's impassive expression, she tapped his knee. "Are you even listening to me? You've known him for a few months. How can you be so sure you like him?" If she had asked him that question 2 weeks ago, he wouldn't have had an answer. But after the incident with the stalkers, he understood. He knew what he was looking for now. "Because of love," he replied. Lena stared at him. "He's kind, and his presence is calming. Just being near him helps me sleep. When he looks at me, I feel like I could drown in his eyes." Lena cut him off, a look of pained disbelief on her face. "Julian, have you heard yourself? That was the most cheesy, cringeworthy thing I have ever heard come out of your mouth. And are you even sure he likes you back?" Julian looked out the window at the passing city lights and smiled. There's only one way to find out. That night, he posted a series of photos from the wrap party with Chris. In the pictures, they were standing close, a large bouquet of red roses between them, both smiling for the camera. The post immediately caused a stir online. Their shippers went wild, while their individual fan bases gushed over the photos. Some amateur sleuths even connected the dots, claiming that the blurry figure in Julian's car during the L. Stalker incident was Chris. The internet was a chaotic mess of rumors and speculation. But his private circle was a different story. Close friends, and even Caleb, immediately messaged him, asking what was going on. Caleb's messages were a series of increasingly frantic S about Victor's possessiveness. Julian only replied to the first one, a simple no. Then he saw the messages from his parents. They were a torrent of abuse, accusing him of shaming the family, of following in his brother's deviant footsteps, and blaming their parenting failures on everyone but themselves. He blocked them both. The screen went blessedly quiet. Then, a new message popped up. It was from Elias. It felt like a deliberate act of fate, a calming presence arriving to clear away the storm. Julian was on his balcony, a cigarette between his fingers. He called him. Elias answered immediately. "Did I interrupt something?" Julian asked, his voice low. Elias replied that he had just finished for the day and was relaxing. The vague answer hung in the air, ripe with possibility. Julian took a slow drag from his cigarette, tilting his head back. "Have you washed my jacket yet?" he asked, as if it were the most casual question in the world. There was a pause, and then Elias's voice, smooth and amused, came through the line. "Ah, the one by Saint Laurent."